For the Chancellor, I'll say up front, the Chancellor is in motion at all times, as everyone has noticed, and seems to be at multiple town hall meetings in multiple boroughs simultaneously most of the time. So she has a long experience in the Bronx, at schools in the Bronx, and in town hall meetings and parent meetings. But I would say and I obviously have been doing plenty of town hall meetings and all, but one thing that is different is when you focus your attention on one borough, it really allows you a chance to think in a very targeted way about the needs of the borough. I had a great meeting last night, dinner meeting with all the members of the City Council delegation, and it was a chance to really focus on some of the things that people think we need to do more of in the Bronx. It just helps to focus our energies, figure out a game plan in a more concentrated way. So we felt that in Staten Island, certainly feeling that again here in the Bronx this week. The Chancellor and to all the team here from DOE and City Hall, obviously you guys have a lot to be proud of, and I want to talk about some of what's been achieved in the Bronx. And I think it's fair to say a lot of our initiatives under the Equity and Excellence vision have had a particularly positive impact on the Bronx. The Equity and Excellence vision, by its very nature, was meant to right some of the wrongs of the past. And I've said, publicly, very bluntly, we knew for many years in this city there was a sort of open secret about which schools were working well and which schools weren't, the quote-unquote good schools, the quote-unquote bad schools. And that was an intolerable situation all along. We're trying to fundamentally change that. And we all know that in that bad status quo, the Bronx in particular suffered. And it's now time to really radically change things, and that's what the Equity and Excellence vision is all about. The things that have already started in earnest affect the Bronx in particular because the Bronx was left behind so often. And so it's no surprise that our initiatives overall are having more benefit for the Bronx, but also some of them are particularly targeted to the Bronx. I'll talk about that for a moment. But overall, just to give you the facts, 1.1 million public school kids, almost a quarter million of them are in the Bronx. 242,000 of our New York City school children are in the Bronx. And as a parent, it's very clear to me that parents have been yearning for more fairness in the educational process and a higher quality standard for their kids, and they want to see these changes that we're making. The numbers for the Bronx are striking, and this is based on 2016, the last full year we have information for. So in 2016, we had the highest graduation rate in the history of the Bronx and the lowest dropout rate in the history of the Bronx. And over the last 3 years since we've been here, the improvement in the graduation rate in the Bronx has been the greatest improvement of any of the 5 boroughs. So again, a borough that often was left behind. There was more ground to make up, but what everyone in the Bronx should be proud of is that ground is being made up steadily, and the Bronx is really showing extraordinary improvement in terms of graduation rate. We are focusing some of our most important initiatives on the Bronx, and the 2 examples I will point to, the Single Shepherd Initiative, which we believe will be one of the game changers here. Literally every single child in a school district, 6th grade through 12th grade, meaning all middle school kids, all high school kids, having a guidance counselor soon assigned not only to them but to their family. And this is what's so powerful about the model. Every child, knowing there's a guidance counselor they can speak to regularly, and that counselor having regular contact with the family, even to the point of visiting the home to establish rapport with the family, and then that individual counselor staying with that child and that family through the entire time remaining in school. So in some cases, a single counselor will start with a family and a child in 6th grade, go all the way through till 12th grade. We think this is going to change a number of things. It's going to improve attendance. It's going to improve follow-through on homework assignments. It's going to improve the ability of teachers and parents to have a working strategic relationship. It's going to help kids make good decisions about high school. It's going to encourage kids to apply for college and follow through on that opportunity. huge potential payoffs here for the child and for the family. Now, what's so important here is District 7 in the Bronx is one of the two places in this city that are the proving grounds for this new approach. So every middle school and high school child in District 7 here in the Bronx is already experiencing this new approach. I want to emphasize one of the reasons why single shepherds in District 7 is because District 7 is one of not only the poorest areas of our city, but one of the areas where there's been the greatest challenges educationally. We're going right at that with this approach. The second thing to point to is what we're doing with 3K. That also is slated to begin this coming September and build out over 2 years in District 7. So within, starting this September, by next September, every child, so by September of 18, every single child in District 7 in the South Bronx will have access, who's 3 years old, will have access to full-day, high-quality education for 3-year-olds. That, we think, is going to be a real game changer as well in terms of preparing those children educationally. And it's going to be a great benefit for parents who will not have to pay for early child education for their child, who will have a guaranteed seat and know their child is safe and secure and getting a good, strong start. So that's a huge advantage for that part of the Bronx. One other thing to say on early childhood, the Bronx, and this is a very powerful statistic, compared to this school year compared to the school year that began September of 2013, there are literally 3 times as many kids in pre-K, full-day pre-K in the Bronx as there were just a few years ago. So in that 13-14 school year, 4,200 kids in the Bronx got full-day pre-K. Today, 14,200 kids in the Bronx are getting full-day pre-K. A huge, huge change. And before I turn to the Chancellor, just say, we are obviously very focused, as we're here in the Bronx talking about education issues, we're very focused on what we need to keep making this progress. And one of the building blocks of the progress has been mayoral control of education. The fact that pre-K moves so quickly, that 3K is moving so quickly, that after school was provided for literally every single middle school child in New York City who wanted and needed it for free. The graduation rate's going up. The dropout rate's going down. Test scores are going up. Teacher training is improving, and more time is being given to teacher training. More time is being given to teacher-parent meetings. All of these things happen because of mayoral control of education. And we are confident that we're going to be able to keep improving on all of those areas, and particularly keep improving the graduation rate and the college readiness levels because of mayoral control of education. So as the discussion continues in Albany, the facts on the ground couldn't be clearer. And if you want an example of where mayoral control of education has been particularly helpful, it's right here in the Bronx. With that, and with great appreciation, I turn to our Chancellor.
And I'm a big supporter of mayoral control as well, because otherwise I don't think I would be taking on this job. So thank you, Mayor.
That's right.
And I'm having such a wonderful time. I spent a lot of time in the Bronx, and Bronx for me has become the borough of firsts, and I will just like to share some of the anecdotes about what it's first in. First of all, this was the first place that we inaugurated our co-located campuses, Lehman High School being the first. And it became really a model for the rest of the city. We sent people from all over the city to come see what we did at Lehman. So you had one school on the Lehman campus that was offering AP courses. Now you have all 7 schools offering AP courses where kids from any part of the school can take it in any other school. So we've almost tripled the number of AP courses just on that one campus. We came to Lehman due to some neighborhood unsettlement about what was happening after school, before school. And it became such a turnaround school that this year in September, the Westchester Avenue Merchants actually hosted a welcome back to school occasion, 8 o'clock in the morning. They were giving out pizza to kids with balloons at the train station, and now they're honoring actually one of the city council persons and myself at the end of year celebration. So what we did at Lehman high school in terms of single bell schedule, after-school programs that are shared, a welcome center for parents, which is really decorated and upgraded, fixing the lobby. We really turned a school that in many cases was not considered a great school to a school of choice for many kids now in the Bronx. And I think that's really, really special. And I think also what's special is now that Lehman High School has a relationship with Lehman College, where they're actually taking some of the professors from Lehman College to spend time on the Lehman High School campus. So that is the model for the rest of the city, and the model is in the Bronx. With Single Shepherd, which I think has been particularly successful, again, anecdotally, one of the schools in the Bronx had 2 guidance counselors. They now have 8 between guidance counselors and social workers under the Single Shepherd. And the principal said to me that he feels that because of the Single Shepherd, he will have the highest rate of retention ever among his teachers. Because we thought of Single Shepherd as a help for parents and kids. What we didn't realize, it was also going to be wonderful for teachers in that they can now spend more time on teaching, and when they have social issues, emotional issues, they can rely on this extra support in the building. And one of the stories they told us is about a particular student who had some home difficulties, and because they didn't have to deal just with the child, but they invested in the whole family, that child now at the end of this year will actually have brought up his academic records substantially. And the principal did an in-house survey, because he said every year he lost 5 to 6 teachers, that this year at the moment, unless there's something personal that comes up, not one teacher is leaving. So seeing as a teacher retention tool is important. One of the things that has been true in the Bronx, which we've tried to work on many different ways, is that there always tended to be more vacancies in terms of hiring teachers, and this was always an issue. So we did 2 things in the Bronx exclusively for the Bronx. One is we had a partnership with the National Teacher Conference, and in the Bronx they're working with first and second year teachers to improve their teaching practices, but also to support them emotionally and socially, because teaching is also a social endeavor. And they're working exclusively in the Bronx. And as a result, we anticipate that many of the first-year teachers, rather than leaving, will actually stay in teaching. The same thing we put aside, we hire teaching fellows every year, and we've agreed the 600 of the teaching fellows this year will be committed to the Bronx, and particularly for special education and English language learners, which is a field that in Bronx we need a lot of and haven't always been able to get the teachers. So I think having that in place will be very helpful. Yesterday, we had our first borough-wide, and Bronx being the first borough to do this, to have a celebration about literacy coaches. Every single district in the Bronx will have a literacy coach in their elementary school. And that means that these are teachers who are applying for this job, and a couple of hundred have already applied. And of the couple of hundred, we will be interviewing and taking the best of the best, and we will be assigning them to elementary schools after a 3-week summer intensive course. These teachers who are going to be retrained on how to work not just with struggling readers, but with English language learners and with special education. And we met with all the principals yesterday, actually up here on Segura Avenue. And one of the things we said very clearly is that this is a game changer. If you have an assigned teacher, they don't work with children, they work with teachers. I call them teacher whisperers. They're going to be working with the teachers twice a month. They go for training by us, and to some degree they're in our payroll, not at the school level, so that we can also dictate what their work is and what it means, and they will become the people to really make sure that teachers' teaching practices are at a high level. I went to visit one of the literacy coaches here in the Bronx, and I go back to my years as a teacher, what I learned in Teaching 101, and one of the things I learned that I had forgotten over the years is the use of a pause. And I went to see a literacy coach do a demonstration lesson in a second grade class, and she asked a question, and these were all English language learners, and there was no answer. Teachers tend to not like vacuum space, silence. It bothers us. We tend to jump in, and this literacy coach just stayed and waited and waited, and eventually one of the kids said something, and she said, okay, now tell her, and tell each other. And before you knew it, everybody was talking, and the space was filled with good talk, because we tend to not understand, particularly for English language learners. They may know the answer, but they're embarrassed or shy or not sure if they're correct. So having these kinds of teachers who can help with the training, and all the training is being done by Dr. Esther Friedman, who's one of the top people in the city, if not the country, in this area. I would say also that one of the things that I think I'm particularly proud of is that the superintendents in the Bronx, as I say them lovingly, they are the most collaborative and also the most competitive. Every one of them wants something better than the one before. And this has been the first borough to create a personal relationship between a cultural institution that fits their specific needs. So, for example, District 8 is working with the New York Historical Society. When you're working in a borough where many of our kids, in this borough particularly, but in others as well, never leave 10 blocks around their home, there is a fear of leaving their immediate neighborhoods. Unless we take them out of their neighborhoods for something, they're going to have a lack of experiential training. And if you want increased vocabulary and literacy and everything else, you can't do it unless you have other experiences. So District 8 has this relationship with the New York Historical Society. Eventually, every parent in District 8 will have gone through it. Right now, they're in the second year, so all principals have done the training there, all assistant principals, most of their teachers, and now it's going to be parents. District 12 is working with the Bronx Zoo. District 11 and District 9 are working with the Museum of the City of New York. Our goal is to take people in the Bronx out of the Bronx, as well as taking people from other boroughs into the Bronx. So I'm very proud of the Bronx. I think we have really dynamic leaders here, and I look forward to doing what we're doing and continue to improve the system so that the equity issue that we are so focused on continues.
Well said, well said. All right. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, are you going to a Yankee game?
No.
No?